So here is Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir. We've done a few segments on Palantir and on Alex Karp, but just to reacquaint you or to acquaint you for the first time, if you haven't seen any of those segments, here he is admitting that his AI systems are used for the benefit of the IDF in Gaza.
A few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that were obviously stupid, you could.
You're getting wealthy off of killing Palestinians. With Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
You're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And
What
you know.
kind of person are you? How do you sleep at night?
Well, if you
Shame on you.
do, you want to hear my answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, I think the primary cause of death to
Really funny.
Palestinians.
That's not funny.
Okay.
Hilarious.
Do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to go?
Hilarious.
No reason.
Well, you don't want to hear an answer?
I want to hear
Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will.
using that excuse. This is why you don't get a platform to speak. Because you are killing my people and you're justifying it because of Hamas or anyone else.
Can we get security up there?
Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians.
That's all true. We've done several segments on that. That is not the focus of this segment because the focus.
Lavender.
Yep, exactly. So you guys can take a look at those other segments that we've done. I will link to them when we clip this video. But this also gives you some insight into the philosophy of Alex Karp. This is a newer video from the Economic Club of Chicago, where the Palantir CEO says, the best way to change the world, humiliate your enemy and then get rich. So here he is bragging about the closeness between Palantir and the United States government, which he admits is kind of taboo in tech world. You know, they're supposed to be libertarians, right? They're supposed to be the move fast, break things rebels. And he's like, no, we do it a different way. Here he is explaining that.
Idea that you would build your company around, in Silicon Valley, the idea that you would build your company around helping the U.S. government was viewed as kind of stupid, which in Silicon Valley is worse than being bad. And so we were very controversial, and that's changed a lot, partly because people realized it was wrong, and quite frankly because if somebody makes a lot of money on something, then it must be right. So we've changed the world by humiliating people and getting rich. It's the most effective way for social change, is humiliate your enemy and make them poorer. And that's how social change actually happens. And so I think we, and then Palantir alumni, really played a huge role in that. But the controversy has been a really big part of what our DNA, and being very unpopular for 17, 18 years.
Oh, yeah. So doesn't this guy look like someone you would trust with all of your most sensitive information? Yeah,
absolutely.
Seems like a great guy.
Absolutely.
Great guy.
He seems very well intended.
Yeah, just a real solid guy who smirks at a woman who's lost family in Gaza thanks to his AI, who says very unashamedly that, it's better to be bad than to be stupid. And yeah, we partner with the United States government in order to enrich ourselves to the humiliation of our adversaries. That's the path to social change. Yeah, so Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans is a write-up from the New York Times. Decent amount of reading here, folks, but it's really chilling. In March, President Trump signed an executive order calling for the federal government to share data across agencies, raising questions over whether he might compile a master list of personal information on Americans that could give him untold surveillance power. Mr. Trump has not publicly talked about the effort since, but behind the scenes, officials have quietly put technological building blocks into place to enable his plan. In particular, they have turned to one company, Palantir, the data analysis and technology firm. The Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work across the federal government in recent months. The company has received more than $113 million in federal government spending since Mr. Trump took office, according to public records, including additional funds from existing contracts as well as new contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon. This does not include a $795 million contract that the Department of Defense awarded the company last week, which has not been spent. Representatives of Palantir are also speaking to at least two other agencies, the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service, about buying its technology, according to 6 government officials and Palantir employees with knowledge of the discussions. The push has put a key Palantir product called Foundry into at least 4 federal agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, the Health and Human Services Department. Widely adopting Foundry, which organizes and analyzes data, paves the way for Mr. Trump to easily merge information from different agencies, the government officials said. Creating detailed portraits of Americans based on government data is not just a pipe dream. The Trump administration has already sought access to hundreds of data points on citizens and others through government databases, including their bank account numbers, the amount of their student debt, their medical claims, and any disability status. Mr. Trump could potentially use such information to advance his political agenda by policing immigrants and punishing critics, Democratic lawmakers and critics have said. Privacy advocates, student unions, and labor rights organizations have filed lawsuits to block data access, questioning whether the government could weaponize people's personal information. Palantir's selection as a chief vendor for the project was driven by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, according to the government officials. At least 3 DOGE members formerly worked at Palantir, while 2 others had worked at companies funded by Peter Thiel, an investor and a founder of Palantir. Okay, quick game break. First of all, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. To outsource to a private company the construction of a centralized database that merges data from all of these different government agencies, essentially creating a government profile of everyone, if that's what they want to do. And it sounds very much like that is what they want to do. And it sounds, based on this reporting, that was really, and I remember people saying this at the time, and a lot of people did not believe them, seems like that was really the purpose of DOGE, does it not? Because
Yes.
What did DOGE save? They saved $150 billion? No, they ended up saving $9 billion. $9 billion was what ended up in the bill. $9 billion for all that sound and fury about $2 trillion, down to $1 trillion, down to $500 billion, down to $150 billion, down to $9 billion. It kind of seems like the point of DOGE was to gather people's information.
Yes.
Because they did a whole lot of snooping around and not a whole lot of cutting. So that seems to be what that was all about. Some current and former Palantir employees have been unnerved by the work. The company risks becoming the face of Mr. Trump's political agenda, 4 employees said, and could be vulnerable if data on Americans is breached or hacked. Several tried to distance the company from the efforts, saying any decisions about a merged database of personal information rest with Mr. Trump and not the firm. This month, 13 former employees signed a letter urging Palantir to stop its endeavors with Mr. Trump. Linda Chia, a signee who was Palantir engineer until last year, said the problem was not with the company's technology, but with how the Trump administration intended to use it. Data that is collected for one reason should not be repurposed for other uses, Ms. Chia said. Combining all that data, even with the noblest of intentions, significantly increases the risk of misuse. Well, it basically usurps the whole warrant process, right? I mean, if you already have all this information in one place, then everyone is a suspect all the time for whatever the government wants.
We're all Winston Smith now.
Yes, exactly. Mario Trulio, a lawyer with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital rights group, said the government typically collected data for good reasons, such as to accurately levy taxes. But, quote, if people can't trust that the data they are giving the government will be protected, that it will be used for things other than what they gave it for, it will lead to a crisis of trust, he said. The White House did not comment on the use of Palantir's technology and referred to Mr. Trump's executive order, which said he wanted to, quote, eliminate information silos and streamline data collection across all agencies to increase government efficiency and save hard-earned taxpayer dollars. Palantir, which was founded in 2003 by Alex Karp and Mr. Thiel and went public in 2020, specializes in finding patterns in data and presenting the information in ways that are easy to process and navigate, such as charts and maps. Its main products include Foundry, a data analytics platform, and Gotham, which helps organize and draw conclusions from data and is tailored for security and defense purposes. This sounds an awful lot to me like social credit scores.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this sounds an awful lot like. Only worse. In an interview last year, Mr. Karp, Palantir's chief executive, said the company's role was the finding of hidden things by sifting through data. Palantir has long worked with the federal government. Its government contracts span the Defense Department and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. During the pandemic, the Biden administration signed a contract with Palantir to manage distribution of vaccines through the CDC. Oh, we don't like that, do we? When Biden's president, we hate that. So why not give this guy $1 billion worth of contracts to say, hey, you know what? That thing you did there, why don't we just put all of these agencies' information in your hands, and you can create a massive centralized database where we can find out whatever we want about whoever we want, whenever we want it, for whatever reason we want it for. That sounds like a great idea. That sounds like something MAGA voted for, right? Where's all the I voted for this people? Where are you? What do you have to say about this? Did you vote for this? I don't think so, but you did.
Well,
You
can
did.
you imagine if this were happening under Biden?
Oh, forget it.
It would be January 6 times 6.
Yeah, right, exactly. Be January 36.
Yeah.
Mr. Trump's election in November boosted Palantir's stock, which has risen more than 140% since then. Mr. Karp, who donated to the Democratic Party last year, that's right, has welcomed Mr. Trump's win and called Mr. Musk the most qualified person in the world to remake the U.S. government. What did I tell you over and over and over again about these people? They believe nothing. They believe nothing. They believe in the path of least resistance to the greatest amount of wealth that they can amass for themselves. That is all they care
Elon
about.
was your billionaire.
Right.
Elon was your billionaire. Elon, the union buster, went in to fix the government for working people. That's
Right.
what he's all about, man. That's what he's all about. He gets up every day thinking about how he can help the average American.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's so fucking absurd, man. It's so absurd. How much of a peasant mind do you have to look at these people and think they care about you? I mean, look, they've been smarter than the Democrats in that the Democrats' big mistake is they don't hide their contempt. They make it very obvious they are elites, they are aristocrats, and they fucking hate you. They make that really, really clear. These people hate you as much, if not more, but they're very good at pretending they don't.
Right.
And they're smart enough to say, okay, well, what do people really hate? What kinds of cultural issues really get them mad? Well, I'm going to signal that I'm with them on those issues, and then I'll be like, they'll think I'm just folks.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
My, richest man in the world's just folks.
Yep.
Just folks, because he agrees with you about drag queens at libraries.
Right.
He's just folks.
Exactly. All right, so let's go on to some of the takes on this because I think that some of these people put it very well. We've been warning you for years, says Sir Escanor. Trump didn't drain the swamp. He outsourced it to Palantir. And now he's handing over your entire digital soul, your data, your metadata, your biometric signature to a surveillance empire with deep ties to Israel, defense contractors, and the beast system itself. This isn't 5D chess. It's full spectrum submission. The same man who sold you freedom is now centralizing control. You didn't win. You got assimilated. Yes, but sure. Trust the plan. Trademark. Hope you enjoy your AI dossier you built. He signed it. Palantir owns it. Yes. Whitney Webb, Now, this is from quite a ways back. This is from January,
Yeah.
but this rings a bell, and it should ring a bell to everybody. Palantir is not just a military contractor. It was a company created to privatize and house the Bush-era neocon-run surveillance program, Total Information Awareness Program, housed previously at DARPA and put under increased CIA control, though the CIA was also intimately involved with TIA. TIA was shut down by Congress because it would have eradicated the constitutional right to privacy, but, very key here to understand, Palantir has accomplished that and gotten away with it because it is a private sector entity. Yes, Palantir's earliest fundraiser besides Peter Thiel, the CIA. Palantir's first client for its first several years as a company, the CIA. Where did Palantir engineers every 2 weeks for years for guidance to developing their products? CIA headquarters. Palantir's originally intended clients per CEO Alex Karp, the CIA. If there was a CIA front company, if there ever was, a CIA front company, it's Palantir, though Peter Thiel has since quipped that the CIA is a front for Palantir. Ian Smith, all right, this is a good one. I like this one. Donald Trump just handed Palantir the contract to build the federal AI database, which will be the single most dangerous consolidation of power in modern American history. Palantir isn't a tech company. It's a surveillance machine born inside the CIA, funded through In-Q-Tel and run by Peter Thiel, a billionaire data oligarch who openly brags about crushing right-wing populist movements in Europe with his software. Now he's here building the backbone of American AI. This is the same Peter Thiel who groomed the character of J.D. Vance, shapes national AI policymaker as an unelected power broker, pretends to be anti-woke while embedding Palantir across every global intelligence agency. And Trump, the guy who ran on Drain the Swamp, just handed him the keys. You are watching a merger of big tech, big government, and artificial intelligence branded as patriotism. They're not creating tools. They're building infrastructure for digital authoritarianism. Palantir has already been used for pre-crime arrests and pandemic lockdown enforcement, and now it's being given access to national databases under the flag of security, not to mention, of course, genocide in Gaza, which this sounds like more of a Chud-adjacent account who's less inclined to mention that, but that is, of course, well documented as well. This isn't the Patriot Act 2.0. This is Revelation 13 in real time.
That one's the whole ball game.
That's the whole ball game right there, Revelation 13. He causes all to receive a mark. No man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. You think the mark will look like a chip. It'll look like this. That's a good point. Right. In other words, they don't need to put a chip in you if they have this. And AI assigning you a risk score, a predictive model determining your access to banking, travel, and medicine, a tech priesthood deciding who's dangerous, and Trump is funding it. Yes, that is pretty terrifying stuff. Palantir is the digital beast system. Thiel is its architect, and conservatives are sleepwalking into their own captivity, cheering as their anti-establishment hero turns the surveillance state into a machine learning monster. This isn't freedom. This is Babel in binary. Well said. That
nicely done. Nicely done.
Yes. That is very dark stuff, very scary stuff. Now, what can we do about this? What can you in the audience do about this? Because you read something like this, knowing the pace at which these things get built, knowing how maniacal these people are, you say, well, what can we do in response? Well, folks, I have 2 words for you. 2 words for you. Pura Vida. Pura Vida. Now, stick with me here.
I was wondering where you were going with this.
Kind of a curveball, I know.
I didn't see that coming.
Costa Rica, baby. Pura Vida.
Pura
Go to Costa Rica.
Pura Vida.
Pura Vida. That's right. Russ has been there. Pura Vida. Enjoy zip lining. Enjoy whitewater rafting. Community dining. horseback riding by the lovely beaches.
I
Great
did that.
wildlife there. Look at that cute little guy, the sloth.
Yeah.
How could you not like a sloth, right?
Mhm.
How could you not
Yeah.
like a sloth? Great for expats, affordable living. Pura vida, Spanish phrase that translates to pure life or simple life, but has a much broader meaning in Costa Rican culture. It's not just a literal translation, it's a way of life, a mindset, and a phrase used in many different contexts. But essentially, it means live a simple, fulfilling life. That's my advice. Find a place you can go that's cheap to live, where you can just get away from this and get away from this, because this is hell. This is absolute hell. This country is going to hell. It's turning into hell. This guy was a Democrat. Joe Biden brought him into the tent for the CDC programming, and just as one administration sets the precedent for the other to escalate and escalate and escalate. I don't trust the Democrats to win in 2028. I think they'll do okay in the midterms. I don't trust them to win in 2028, which means if you got Vance, then these guys, I mean, forget it. These guys will be running the entire government. But even if the Democrats do manage to win,
the government.
even if the Democrats do manage to win, I don't trust them to reverse any of this, because once this stuff gets built, it does not get disassembled.
Yeah.
So this is hell. This is just a hell. The country has gone to hell. This is a surveillance state. This is digital authoritarianism. This is what Whitney Webb has been talking about for a very long time. And people didn't believe her because they said, no, these are private sector guys. These are entrepreneurs. They're cool. They're with us. They're the Mavericks. They're going to come in and they're going to stick it to the establishment on our behalf. It couldn't be that they see the biggest and most lucrative contracts
the cool elites
they can ever imagine. The United States government is going to pay them hundreds of millions of dollars at a clip to do their bidding. Not only is that huge money, but just as important to them, because these guys tend to move fast and break things and play fast and loose with things like accounting and taxes and things. Now they're doing the government's work. They're in. They're never gonna be bothered. They're never gonna be harassed. Just the opposite. They're the cops now. So this is terrifying. It's terrifying. I cannot overstate the severity of this, which is why, find a place that's cheap to live and, Pura vida.
I well done, sir. I like that Costa Rica section. All right. With this
guy ain't afraid of no Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
you know what you got, Alex Carp.
You know what you got in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I mean, the sloths are not common, but like the monkeys are all over.
Yeah, the monkeys will roll up on you and steal your glasses.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they're not as aggressive as in India. In India, they're like, "Yo, you give up your shit, motherfucker. I'll fuck you up." They don't bother you in Costa Rica, at least in my experience. Yeah. We're hitting an inflection point in society now. A lot of what Marx predicted is here. He predicted that the end stage of capitalism would be looting the treasury, that the capitalists with nothing left to steal would steal the government money. That's where we are. Also, we are at this moment, and I really think this is what the fight is about. We're hitting the moment where you're kind of getting the economic singularity, where the technology is finally here that makes capitalism not make sense anymore. And at that point, you could go in two directions. We've hit that potential Star Trek world, right? Where people don't really have to work as much. We're not at the point where no one would have to work, but we're at the point where the technology could feasibly start to take the burden off of humanity, and you start to get a more communist kind of a system and a universal basic income and something more along those lines. The other direction you could go with this technology is feudalism, right? Where you have what labor you need, you barely pay for, and you just have a beaten, suppressed population ruled over by a narrow, incredibly wealthy and privileged aristocracy. That's what these people are building here. The other direction is socialism. And I think part of the urgency with which they're building this is because these are not dumb guys. They know that. They know this technology. The natural implication of it is the dismantling of capitalism. You dismantle capitalism, they lose the only thing they care about, power, privilege, and status. That's all these people care about. That's all they run on.
Right.
All this money they have, most of it's on paper. They don't feel it. Doesn't really affect them. It's in principle. That's why they're going after more tax cuts for money they don't need and would never even notice when it's deposited in their bank account. It's a mindset. It's a mindset to take as much as possible from everybody else and concentrate it all into their hands, which also at this moment in history is defensive. They don't want people empowered. They don't want people to be able to use this technology to liberate themselves from being members of the laboring class, from having to sweat and live in fear and stress about how they're going to feed their families. They don't want that world to end. Their power relies on that world continuing. They know the more empowered workers become, the more it's probably going to be at their expense. The more they're going to question, why do we have guys with this much money? Which seems like a very obvious question. This is going to get very ugly. That is the fight of our times. And it's going to be a fight not just within this country, which it looks like this country is going to represent the darkest, most dystopian manifestation of this technology. This country is going to go techno-feudalism. There will be other countries around the world that are fighting to use this technology to arrive at that kind of Star Trek socialism. That is going to be the fight. And this technology is very quickly outstripping the safeguards we have to protect ourselves against it. You got to remember, America develops this kind of fascist AI surveillance state. What are other countries going to do that want to battle that? They're going to have to firewall themselves from American computer systems.
Right.
Right?
But
They
that's
can't
what China
risk
does
having,
now. That's what because
Right.
they have to.
Right. They can't risk having those systems get into their systems. When you look at the whole effect of everything that they're doing, to Keaton's point about Costa Rica, yeah, man. I was just reading articles. It's not just foreigners not wanting to come to America now because of the way they're harassing people at the border. There are Americans who are not leaving the country because they don't want to risk it, because they're hearing stories about people getting bothered coming back. Right. I just now, man, we have a very kind patron of ours was offering to show me around Toronto, and he called me. He was like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't. It's not really worth it. You don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll hold you at the border for hours, and it's not worth the headache. And I didn't go.
Right.
That is the I certainly would have gone if this had not been going on in the country right now. So what's the effect of that? We're behind an iron curtain, right? Like, they're trying to cut off America from the rest of the world. They're trying to make it such that nobody wants to come in, and the people who are in can't get out. I mean, this is what they told us communism was. Right. This is
they can get out. They just can't come back.
They can't come back.
Leave, but you can't come back.
Well, not even. I was reading a story. They set up a checkpoint from the border into Canada on the West Coast, and they were questioning people why they were traveling up there.
Yeah.
So why would you do that? Why would you do that? You're trying to make people afraid to leave.
Right.
You're trying to lock everybody in. You're creating this isolated, dystopian, feudal state. So yeah, man. I mean, what you're saying, you presented it in a humorous way, and I know most people can't do that, so I don't want to be flip about just go to another country. But yeah, I mean, we give it to you straight. We always have. Things are not looking good here. The hope is in things like what we just saw with Glenn Greenwald that we reported tonight.
Right.
Hope is with Anonymous and groups like that have mastery of this technology from the inside. And I'm sure you have people with those sympathies, as we even saw in your story, who are from Palantir, who don't like where all of this is going. Like, your best hope is in rebellion. And even within these horrible systems, you always have some rebels on the inside. That's your best hope for this country.
Please clap.